Have you ever wondered what role the First Amendment played in the idea of free speech? Well, it's good to think about it and to reflect on it. Having studied these assigned materials, I've gained a better understanding of free speech and the First Amendment and the relationship that they have with each other. There are a few fundamental aspects of free speech people should know. The First Amendment protects some forms of expression but not others. The right to express ideas without government interference, etc. You get the gist. So let's break it down. Does the First Amendment protect all forms of speech? And why? Well, on page 119 in the book, it says, even the pre-modern Supreme Court rejects arguments that the First Amendment protection should be limited only to speech that contains particular content, namely information or ideas, to be specific. In a significant 1948 decision, Windsor versus New York, the court overturned a ruling by New York State's highest court, which had held the First Amendment did not shield publications that so mass their collection of pictures and stories of bloodshed and of lust as to become vehicles for inciting violent and depraved crimes against the person. On page 120, it states, the court's longstanding recognition that freedom of speech is not confined only to expression that communicates information or ideas has the following corollary. Freedom of speech embraces expression that may not communicate anything at all to any third party, but rather constitutes solely individual self-expression. From how I see it personally, the First Amendment can protect all forms of speech depending on what those forms are. The examples are what I already mentioned from the text. The First Amendment says, Congress shall pass no law abridging the freedom of speech. How has the Supreme Court interpreted the words Congress, no law, and abridging? On page 78, it states, the court has construed Congress to refer not only to the sole government body to which that word literally refers, the legislative branch of the national government, but also to all government bodies and officials in all branches and levels of government in the United States, ranging from local police officers and school teachers to the President of the United States. In parallel fashion, the court has construed the word law to encompass not only the legislation or regulations to which it literally refers, but also any other official action undertaken by any government, an agent, or body. The First Amendment religious liberty literally refers, but also the First Amendment religious liberty clause bears any law abridging freedom of speech or of the press. Accordingly, the First Amendment's explicit language bars not only such outright prohibitions on free expression as criminal bans or prior restraints, but also other measures that abridge or limit free expression. So, how does the court interpret speech? And how is money considered speech? Do you agree with the court's characterization of money as speech, and why? On page 82, it states, even if the court agreed that a challenged reputation targeted speech, the court could still uphold the regulation. To quote the Free Speech Clause's language, a restriction on speech does not necessarily constitute a law abridging the freedom of speech. In other words, for a speech restriction to violate the First Amendment, it is necessary, but not sufficient, that the restriction limits expressive conduct that is considered speech. All modern justices have expansively interpreted speech as designating much more than its most literal meaning, which denotes talking. Rather, the modern court has consistently treated speech as synonymous with expression of any mode, including not only words but also images. Additionally, the modern court has broadly construed speech as excluding expression that is conveyed, not only words, that is conveyed via any means of communication. Also, when the book talks about whether the court has considered money as speech, it states, in a series of decisions dating back to its 1979 Buckley v. Valeo ruling, the Supreme Court has held the First Amendment governs restrictions on campaign finance, making financial contributions to or spending money on behalf of political campaigns for candidates or ballot issues. The court has held that spending money to advance a political message constitutes expressive conduct, just as it has held regarding a wide array of any conduct that advances political messages. For example, burning a flag, wearing an armband, marching in a parade, and pursuing litigation. Me personally, I don't agree with the court's characterization of money as free speech because I believe that it is wrong for the court to deem money and speech the same thing. Like, how can they be the same thing, right? And also because when talking about money and speech, it leaves one thinking how they could possibly be connected to each other. When talking about money, we think of physical currency and what we buy items with, right? And with speech or free speech, we think of self-expression and the right to be able to express oneself without any interference from the government. So anyone should be able to express themselves freely. Therefore, money and free speech are two completely different ideas from each other. To sum up, it is important for us to think about if the First Amendment protects all forms of speech, how the Supreme Court has interpreted the words Congress, law, no law, and abridging, and how the court interprets speech and how money is considered speech. Have you ever wondered what the role the First Amendment plays in the idea of free speech? Well, it's good for us to think about it and to reflect on it and to keep it in mind for the future.